Arsenal Fan TV. What do you all professional broadcasters think of them?
Well, I like the fact they've given the fans a voice, an instant voice. I just think with it, you've got to be aware of your responsibility to it. That's all I would say. Now, I don't know Robbie, but Robbie's brother I know well, who's a lovely bloke, and I'm sure Robbie's a very nice man. I would just say you've got to be responsible when it comes to it.
Yeah.
I think it's slightly British thing that somebody comes up with an idea, makes a success of it, and then we all want to slag them off. We all want to criticise them. I would just say, as I say, remember your level of responsibility with it. And I think it got popular at just the right moment, didn't it? Because a fans TV station is never going to be popular if you're mid-table and bumping along. It's not necessarily going to be that popular if you're winning everything in sight, because there's nothing to talk about. But obviously, chiming with the end of the Wenger era, and obviously with the sort of polemic involved in that, if you like, it was the perfect time for it. But I would never criticise them for being entrepreneurial. I would certainly never criticise them for giving them a voice. You might disagree with them.
Obviously, you've already mentioned Arsene. What a dream to have met him. The best thing about Wenger was, I interviewed him a lot in the early days, not so much in the last 6 or 7 years. The best thing about Wenger was you could ask him anything. You could literally ask him anything. And there was a time in the beginning of that season 4-5 when England were winning the Ashes finally after 18 years. People asked him about that. He gave a brilliant answer. He basically said, typical Wenger, he went, I don't really understand cricket, but I understand this means an awful lot to an awful lot of you, and I'm really pleased, and good luck England and carry on. He was brilliant like that because he was such an intelligent man. He understood what was going on in the country and how much it meant, and so wasn't going to poo-poo it. It wasn't going to go, I'm not interested in that. And that was the best. That was absolutely the best thing about him. And my friends who were in tunnels over the years, the reporters in tunnels, particularly when I was on radio, would just text me and go, had a lovely, sort of hop us too, had a lovely chat with Wenger for 20 minutes. Charming. We talked about all sorts of things and asked her about a kick-off wherever. I mean, it just was a proper human being. I mean, there are lots of things I'd like to ask him from Arsenal's point of view. Obviously, we've talked about Arsene. You must have worked closely with Ferguson, Mourinho, Guardiola, Klopp. Any sort of thoughts, words that you could share about comparisons, perhaps, or any thoughts about them?
I think interestingly with George Graham, there are so many phases in sport, aren't there? There are this is the way we play a particular way, and then that comes to an era. Look at Wales; they played a particular way. Rugby for years under Warren Gatland. Now they play a different way. England got to world #1 cricket under Andy Flower, playing a particular way. He leaves. They understand they have to change the way. I think Alex Ferguson and George Graham were very much men of their time. I think Fergie's retired now 8 years ago. Yeah. I think they would accept you can't manage that way. So I think what's really fascinating about these people is those who recognise, well, what's happened up till now has worked. Not their teams, because Fergie changed his teams brilliantly, but the way that I manage has worked for so long. It's not going to work so much now. As everyone says, you've got a bunch of multi-millionaires. You drop me, well, I just get my agent to get me another team. So I think what it is this issue of man management is absolutely fascinating. Guardiola is obviously really good at it. And if I can say, I did an interview with Arteta for PLP on Thursday, and he gave a really good answer, basically saying, I was asking him about obviously playing behind closed doors and with no crowd. And he said, I've got 12 different nationalities in my team. I cannot treat them all the same way. So I think the demands on these managers now to have that intelligence, and if you like, to have that sort of mental agility to go, oh, right, Richard, you'll behave one way, Drew, you'll behave another way, as much because of where you come from, is really fascinating. And it must be exhausting for them as well. So in other words, Fergie was one way, wasn't it? Fergie and George were one way. I mean, Lee Dixon has said it lots of times. You play this way or you don't play. Look at Mickey Thomas. Thomas didn't want the ball sailing over his head anymore, did he? So he went to Liverpool. Well, George put him in the reserves. Under 2 years after scoring the goal of all time, he's in the reserves. You couldn't do that anymore. It's not one size fits all now. The managers have to be so adept mentally and in terms of man management about how everybody is going to react. Otherwise, the players just go, you're paying me 100 grand a week, I'll sit on the bench, or I'll go and play for someone else.
Yeah. Anything about Mourinho, Guardiola or Klopp?
I think what I'm fascinated by Mourinho is I'm absolutely fascinated. Can he coach his way out of this? I mean, what he did was fantastic. You clearly, obviously he was way out of order with the Voyeur. We know he was way out of order. But, his record up until going to Man United was fabulous, even if it's short term. Can he coach his way out of this? I think everybody, including my Tottenham friends, are fascinated by that. Because I was, as I said, I was working with Ian Wright and Tim Sherwood last week. And I said to Tim, what do you think about Mourinho and the Tottenham fans? And he went, I think it's 50-50 at the moment. So can he coach his way out of that? And Klopp, well, you have to take your hat off to him, don't you? I mean, it's extraordinary. You have to take your hat off to him.
Why isn't he the Arsenal manager? Always wanted him.
Yes, yeah, I absolutely. But we all know why not, because the board wanted Arsene to make his own decision, didn't it? But I think Klopp and Guardiola are brilliant. But I think what is absolutely evident now is clearly you'll never see a Ferguson or Wenger again, is how long is the shelf life? I would say, is this Klopp's 5th season? It might be his 5th season, 4th or 5th. The shelf life is 6 years max for me. I'd be surprised if it's that much. And it works, and the players listen to it, but the players in the end want to, get too used to the voice, don't they? They got too used to Arsene Wenger's voice. I think we would all agree with that, probably, because when you start getting too used to it, you start taking advantage of it. So I think that's what's really. I mean, Guardiola have been sensational, may well win the Champions League this season, and Klopp, it's out of this world what he's done, isn't it? It's absolutely out of this world what he's done.
You've mentioned Arsene leaving. What was it like working with him around that time? Interviews with Arsene and everything, knowing all that was in the background. It
got difficult actually, because it got personal, didn't it? I mean, and I went to the Emirates to work quite a lot those 2 seasons, and people probably know. Well, the TV gantry is in the Never Eat Straight Away, the top of the West, and the radio one was at the bottom. And it got, so you could hear everything and people streaming past you. There's one particularly noisy cab driver from probably not far from you, Richard, actually. It's actually quite funny how noisy it was. But you just, and I'd be there with Lee Dixon or Dion Dublin or whatever, and people, and you just go, this isn't really the way anybody wants it to finish. It got quite unpleasant in the last 18 months.
What about Arsene himself? How did
in that time?
Yeah,
I thought he dealt with it pretty well. I mean, he got put under pressure in interviews, and rightly so. I mean, the interviews were completely fair enough, I felt.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was a bit relieved in the end.
Anything about what was it like with Emery? And
I didn't really come across Emery. I thought he started well, but then I think what we all thought was quite brave, his substitutions at half-time, so many of them, quite soon became, well, this bloke never gets his team right to start with. You know what I mean? I think it quite quickly flopped into that. Clearly his lack of English, command of English was a problem. I felt a bit sorry for him on the good evening. I was probably as guilty as anybody to my friends on text. I'm sure I was. I felt a bit sorry for him on that. But I think he just lost his way a bit, didn't he?
Yeah.
He just seemed to lose his way a bit. I think Arteta's very, very bright. And going back to what Tim Sherwood said to me on Thursday, I said to him, so what do you think about Arsenal Tottenham now? And he goes, the big difference is Arsenal have got a manager who wants to coach his way out of it. Not sure, he clearly, Arteta, Tim Sherwood did his coaching badges with Arteta, and he wants to coach his way out of it. And I think that's really exciting. I think it's really exciting to see if he can do it. Arsenal got a very good academy, and it may well be they're going to have to use, well, they are using the academy already, and he's going to have to sort out Saka's contract and where Saka going to play because of Tierney. But he's got, Maitland-Niles, everyone says, is suddenly, I think he might have had a bit of a slate wiped clean. Can he coach his way out of it?
Yeah.
And I think if he can, you as the crowd will respond to that even more than if he bought, 6 £100 million players. You know what I mean? Because you go, here's some kids. You go back to the Anfield team.
And we all know who was in that team. We all know how many came through the youth team. We all know what George Graham was left, the core of that Anfield team. So I think that's actually potentially really exciting to see if he can do. They may not be able to, or we all know what happens. Players, not everyone is going to make it, but he really wants to do this, and he's been, he really, coaching is his thing. He is a coach. He's a coach. So there's the challenge, isn't it? I would hope that people would find that quite exciting.